Do you like to decoupage and create home decor? Have you ever used Pentart Fine Line Crackle? Creates these tiny little lines that you can fill in with antique paste, also from Pentart. Have you ever used Wise Owl varnish to do decoupage? Well, today I'm taking this board. This is just an old board that was part of a shelf that was already painted because it was just a shelf that was a little bit too long and it had to be cut down. And we are going to put together this super fun Halloween board. I'm usually not a big fan of orange, but something about this orange farmhouse, I just fell in love with it. So I'm taking an old board. It was cut off from a shelf that was too long. And I'm going to decoupage the parts of this paper on and create a fun little mixed media wall art for Halloween. This paper is from AB Studios. It is rice paper, and it is an A4 size, which is just slightly bigger than a piece of copy paper. I am using Wise Owl varnish, and it is a matte varnish, and I am just going to put one piece down at a time, and I'm going to go over them once I get them all down. So I'm just going to start by cutting those little pieces out so that I don't have the writing or the extra stuff, and then just pop them down because we're going to do a lot of other stuff to this piece of art. The orange farmhouse itself doesn't really look that Halloweeny other than the color, except when you put the black cats and the girl with the pumpkins on it. And then you kind of get that Halloween vibe. But we're going to even add more things to the Halloween vibe. I am taking these little stencils and I am going to use black paint, and you could see I already went around the edges. I actually just went around the outside edges and some of the paint came inside. And I am putting a couple little spiders and some bats. And I am going to make this really look Halloween when I add the jack-o'-lanterns right up there on the front lawn. And the first little spider that I put over on that cat. It's a little bigger than I would have normally put a spider there, but the reality is there was something stuck on the wood there and it was a bump, so I went ahead and covered it up with that spider. And now I'm adding bats to the sky. I got this bunch, I think 30 little stencils on Amazon, and I doubt I even paid $10 for them. And I have used them on every little Halloween project that I have done this year. And there were like 5 or 6 different bats in the actual packet, and these were the most intricate with their design, and I really like the way they look flying up there in the sky. I was debating for a while whether I wanted to say Happy Halloween on the bottom, and then I decided no, I don't. But I am putting these jack-o'-lanterns on the bottom, and I'm going to actually go over them with orange. So I don't want you to be able to see through them because then you can tell they're a stencil. So I went ahead and I painted them black. And then after that, I moved the stencil just a tiny little bit to the right, and then I paint them orange. And that way they're a little more colored in and they look much more kind of like a spooky jack-o'-lantern. So here you see the pumpkins done, and you can tell that I moved that stencil over just a little bit to add those orange. And then I am going to go ahead and add the yellow, which really makes them stand out. I also go ahead and add a little bit of a black shadow, and it just made those pumpkins look like they were three-dimensional, just sitting out there on the lawn. I like the way the black really makes the orange and the design stick out. So I'm going to go around the two cats, the little girl, and the house with black paint. And I'm just stippling it on, kind of filling in everywhere there's white. So here you see that just that little bit of shadow just gives it just a much more realistic look. And let's make sure that those yellow eyes really pop on those jack-o'-lanterns. And here it is, all done. I really like the way it came out. Now for the super fun part, I am going to add a fine line crackle to this whole project. And first thing I'm doing, I am painting on step one. So the whole thing has to be painted with the step one component, and then that has to be totally let dry. Now mine has been opened for a while, so it was super thick, little hard to work with, but we managed to get it to crackle. And this is the first step, which I let stay overnight and worked on another project while it was drying. So component number one is totally dry, and you can see it's not white anymore. It's clear, you don't see it. And it's time for component number two. Now, again, mine had been left open for a while, so it was super, super thick. And it was a little harder to get a thinner coat, so it did come out super thick and very shiny, which I actually love the look of it. But again, painted the whole thing with the component number two and let it dry. Took all, I think it dried all night, and then it crackled. So it had nice big crackles all on its own, but I wanted some more fine line crackles, and I wanted some maybe like spidery looking crackles. So I went ahead and hit it with the blow dryer for a while to really get more of the smaller crackles and the cracks, and it worked out perfectly. So then I again had to wait for this whole thing to totally dry before I could add a little bit of I'm using like a bronze wax to really give it that kind of spooky little vintage aged Halloween look. So once I have all of that second step on, I've really got to make sure that it's totally dry before I do the wax on it. And it does take a while. It is not something you can just take it and blow dry the whole thing. It just, you really need to have the patience because it's worth it. It really comes out super fun. Everything is dry. I am super happy with the amount of crackles, and I want to bring out those cracks. So what I'm doing is I am using an antique paste wax, and the color that I'm chose is called bronze, and it's a product from Pent Art. And I'm just using a tiny little bit on the tip of my finger. I rub it in, really, really rub it in, and then buff off as much of it as I need to make sure that I don't take away from the design, but just add to the design with those deep cracks, which give it a super vintagey, um, very antiquey, a little bit austere, a little bit more on the Halloween feel, and it came out perfect. I love the way it looks. This has to dry for 24 hours before I could put on a top coat, which is going to be a type varnish that's going to go over the whole thing, just so that it'll be waterproof. And here are some close-ups of what it looks like. There's the sky with the crackle and the bats, and you could see some of the crack on the house. There's the pumpkins, the cat, and the girl. So you could see when you have it close up, it really came out exactly how you would want your crackle to come out. And there it is.